All right, good. It started. Okay, so for those that just joined us, make sure you jump on the Nearpods. You can follow along as we go along. And I'm going to share my screen too, and then I'll pop over to the class so you can kind of see some stuff here. Let me share. All right. Okay, so your class, okay, when you come right here, I do post the recording right to the announcement. So for those that can't be here or missed it, but if you go into content, this is where you'll find all the stuff, right? You got to do videos, quiz, video quiz, all that kind of stuff. So module 1 and module 2 were due last week. This next week, we have module 3, which is right here. And then also module 4. So you'll see all of these, okay? So that's what's going to be due this week. I give you until Friday to do it. So you got plenty of time to kind of get through there. But that's what we're going to kind of talk about today is those two modules. Okay, yeah, and if you are behind in that kind of stuff, I'm not nailing anybody for being late right now. This is just the first couple weeks of the block, and I know it's kind of hard to be able to get everything worked out, know how each class works. Now on these, I've set the quizzes up so you can take them as many times as you'd like, okay? If I were to set it up, that, let's see here. So if I were to set it up where it shows you what the answer is right after, then everybody would just take it and then retake it again to get there. So I don't want that to happen. I want you to be able to kind of learn from your mistakes. But I'm more than happy to go like some people would like to do, to show what questions you did miss and then kind of go from there so you can get a little bit more information of which ones you really need to study on. Okay, so what we're going to be doing today, we got lesson 2. Just so you remember, this is going to be recorded for learning purposes. Have that little waiver in there. Class expectations, pretty easy to go over. Follow along with the Nearpod. Use the chat tools respectfully and appropriately. And then respond to questions and instructions the first time. Okay, so this is what we're going over today. So the lesson objective in the class is you're able to go into those quizzes that we just looked at in the OLS, and you can accurately answer the multiple choice questions in regards to the effects of personal financial planning and identifying sources of income and specific employment skills. So those are the 2 modules that they're kind of looking at. Module 3 is how goal setting and that kind of stuff helps with your personal finance, and then also identifying sources of income. Okay, we already talked about this right now, where we should be in the course. So just so you know, you should be done with module 1 and module 2 and working on module 3 and module 4 this week. If you'd like to go ahead, feel free to do so. I'm not stopping you. Okay. So we're going to watch this, one of the videos in here, and we're going to do some discussion after that. All right. Were you able to hear that? Awesome. Okay, here we go.
A financial planning process involves figuring out where you'd like to be, where you are, and how to go from here to there. More formally, a financial planning process means the following: defining goals, assessing the current situation, identifying choices, evaluating choices, choosing, assessing the resulting situation, redefining goals, identifying new choices, evaluating new choices, choosing, and assessing the resulting situation over and over again. Personal circumstances change and the economy changes, so your plans must be flexible enough to adapt to those changes, yet be steady enough to eventually achieve long-term goals. Defining goals. Figuring out where you want to go is a process of defining goals. You have shorter-term 1 to 2 years, intermediate 2 to 10 years, and longer-term goals that are quite realistic, and goals that are more wishful. Setting goals is a skill that usually improves with experience. According to a popular model, to be truly useful, goals must be specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely, or SMART. Short-term goals include things like saving money in an emergency fund, increasing savings, and reducing debt. Intermediate goals include things like saving for a down payment on a house, saving to buy a car with cash, paying off student loan debt, or saving for a big trip or purchase. Long-term goals include saving for retirement, paying off a house, and saving for college for your children or grandchildren. Goals change over time, and certainly over a lifetime. Whatever your goals, however, life is complicated and risky, and having a plan and a method to reach your goals increases the odds of doing so. For example, after graduating from college, Alice has an immediate focus on earning income to provide for living expenses and debt from student loan obligations. Within the next decade, she foresees having a family. If so, she will want to purchase a house and perhaps start saving for her children's educations. Her income will have to provide for her increased expenses and also generate a surplus that can be saved to accumulate these assets. In the long term, she will want to be able to retire and derive all her income from her accumulated assets and perhaps travel around the world in a sailboat. She will have to have accumulated enough assets to provide for her retirement income and for the travel.
On mute. My bad. Okay. All right. So that was a lot to think about. Okay. I know you guys are young and just kind of in the infancy of kind of thinking about exactly what you want to do for a living, how you're going to generate income, how you're going to do it. But there's so much different, I guess, variables in the way kind of things work in the world. Economies go up and down. So there's at some point in time where you may not make as much money on something as you would in a certain other thing. And we're seeing that all today. So you have to be flexible as you're kind of thinking. But what I want you to do in the Nearpod is I want you to put, what are some goals you have set for yourself? Maybe in regards to any of these things, maybe short term, right? Short term could be, you know, buying a car, getting a driver's license, that kind of stuff, to more intermediate, like where you want to go to college, that kind of stuff. And then even long-term, if you have something long-term. Okay, save money for family trips. Okay, good. Saving for college, good. One of the things they talked about on there, as you guys are putting other stuff in, is, you know, just being steady, keeping that same course, right? Those that are diligently doing the same thing are the ones that are going to be able to be better off, like, right? So saving for money for college, good. To graduate high school and go to college, very good. Invest. All right, that's something that's interesting, right? It's like, but what do you invest in? And that's where you got to kind of look at what's going on in the world around you and find those investments that are good. Okay. Procure a sustainable income. Okay. So something that's not going to go up and down or might change with times. If you kind of think COVID, right? It really took a hit on some industries, but some other industries were just fine or are booming even more than they were, right? So you got to be able to be adaptable to that. So sustainable income, it's important, okay? For right now, save about 75% of each paycheck to save for the future. That's very good. That's a good way to look at some stuff. Usually what they kind of say in a regular budget is if you can save 20% of your total income for savings and then put, first you have an emergency fund and then you put it to other stuff. That's about where you want to be. Being able to have enough money to buy some things for fun, like books and art supplies. Okay. Move to New York. Okay. That will be something we're going to be talking about, is looking at where you want to live. Okay. So keep that in mind. If you want to live in New York, what is it like compared to living here, right? Because all places are not the same. There's places that are cheaper to live. There's places that are more expensive. Okay, somebody said right now, driver's license. Okay. I'm with you. That is something that's going to help you in the future be able to set yourself up to be able to make more money, to be able to continue on there. Okay. What short-term financial goals do you have? Okay, we kind of talked a little bit about those. I think most of us are very much in the short-term mindset, especially you guys right now. And you're probably not worried. Like right now, I'm worried more about longer-term stuff and intermediate stuff, just because of the place I am in life. Okay, we're going to watch this next video, and then we'll discuss some more.
What is the cost of living? Cost of living is the amount of money needed to sustain a certain level of living, including basic expenses such as housing, food, taxes, and healthcare. Cost of living is often used to compare how expensive it is to live in one city versus another. Cost of living is tied to wages, as salary levels are measured against expenses required to maintain a basic standard of living throughout specific geographic regions. Cost of living can be a significant factor in the personal wealth accumulation because a smaller salary can go further in a city where it doesn't cost a lot to get by, while a large salary can seem insufficient in an expensive city. According to Mercer's 2015 Cost of Living Survey, cities with the highest cost of living standards included Tokyo, Osaka, Moscow, Geneva, Hong Kong, Zurich, Copenhagen, and New York City. U.S. cities with a high cost of living as of 2015 included Honolulu, Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., and San Francisco. A cost of living index compares the cost of living in a major city as compared to the corresponding metropolitan area. The index incorporates the expense of various components that comprise basic human needs, creating an aggregate measure to which new entrants into the workforce may refer. As college graduates weigh employment alternatives and currently employed job seekers consider relocation, the index provides an informative snapshot of rental, transportation, and grocery costs. In 2016, using New York City as a benchmark for other U.S. cities, San Francisco maintains the highest cost of living in the Americas. Rental costs in San Francisco are about 3% higher than in New York, and food prices sit 22% above corresponding levels found in New York. By contrast, the citizens of Reno, Nevada enjoy a cost of living approximately 43% below that of New York residents when analyzing basic expenses on an aggregate basis. For a family with 2 adults and 2 children, the average cost of living in the United States hovered around $65,000 per year in 2015. The figure does exclude discretionary spending on non-essential goods and services such as leisure, entertainment, and luxury items. The debate over raising the U.S. federal minimum wage is deeply rooted in the disparity between the lowest wage allowed by law and the earnings needed to maintain an adequate cost of living. Proponents of a minimum wage hike found that productivity levels of workers increased since 1968 as unequally correlated to the minimum hourly rate of pay in 2012. As the minimum wage once tracked the increase in productivity, the divergence between earnings and worker efficiency have reached historically disproportionate levels. By contrast, opponents of a minimum wage increase contend that a raise could spur higher consumer prices as employers offset rising labor costs.
All right. Okay, so there is this website that I will have you go to in just a second. I'll send out that link. But what it does is it compares cost of living from one place to another. So it was very interesting that who was it that said they wanted to go to New York, live in New York? Because I'd love to kind of do some things on there. So it's this. Let me send this out so you guys can all kind of indicate. This is something I like to do because I like to think about moving somewhere else, right? I like Utah, but not always. But I live near Ogden, Utah. Okay. So what you can do is you put your closest city that you live to, closest big city. And then you put my current household income. So I'm just going to put $50,000 because that's what it says it is. Just what's already filled in. But it depends on where I want it to move to. So to keep the same lifestyle that I have right now, and if I wanted to move, let's say to New York, okay? Because somebody wanted to move to New York. So let's say we're going to go move in Manhattan. So in order to keep the same lifestyle I'm living right now, I would have to make $133,000, almost $134,000 to keep this same lifestyle that I have right now. So pretty interesting, right? Now there's some areas, for example, let's see here. Actually, Alabama might be a good one. Let's look about, let's move to Mobile, Alabama, okay? See where that is. See, the cost of living, I could make less money there and still keep the same quality of life. Okay, you don't want to live in a different, I like the country and state I'm in. But it won't let you pick the same one. Yeah, so think about, you don't have to move. I'm not saying that, but just say for experimentation, like if you have to move. Like not everybody moves for a certain reason. You may have to move for some reason, right? So just pick a place. I would say, I like to look at some areas like Alaska, okay? I moved to Juneau, Alaska, I'd have to make $70,000 to keep the same lifestyle I'm living here. And then you can hypothesize a little bit of why that is, right? Well, food prices are higher. And you can kind of look down here and it shows you, right? So the housing costs there are higher. Transportation costs are higher. Food costs are higher, quite a bit higher. That's probably because they have to ship everything in, right? So a loaf of bread in Ogden is around $3.08. It's $5.19 in Juneau, Alaska. Here's a big one, right? 12-inch pizza, it's $1 more. Double quarter pounder with cheese. Oh man, it's over $1 more there. Jeez. But I would be interested in, let's go back to New York real quick. I want to go to food costs. This interests me. Okay, they only raised it a little bit. Pizza, it's a little bit higher. Maybe because it's New York, right? Loaf of bread, it's quite a bit higher. Dozen eggs. Kind of interesting. Where's that at? That you're showing that it's lower. So you might want to do some comparison here. This is kind of the big one here. An average house, 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Ogden is $355,000. That same house in New York is $2.2 million. Yeah. Yep. If you're gonna rent in Ogden, you can rent for almost $1,000. It'd be over $5,000 to rent in New York.
Yeah.
It's cheaper to live in Illinois. Yeah, that might be a good place to.
Yeah.
Illinois. I did hear that some of those areas, the Midwest kind of areas, are a little bit cheaper to live in. Yeah, a little bit cheaper. Transportation's a little bit lower. Entertainment's higher, but housing's lower. It's cheaper in Orlando. Oh yeah, I like Orlando a lot. I could see myself being there. Sorry, I got a little buddy that just popped in. He may say hi. All right, so that's something you can look at, okay? Think about, when you're making decisions and following through, that's kind of a big thing, okay? Thinking about all of those different variables. Okay, so since you guys are kind of doing that a little bit and playing around, where did you want to move to, and was the cost higher or lower? So I'm going to throw that out there again, that cost of living calculator to you. But I'd like to know what you guys put, right? Where did you want to move to? Okay, Orlando, Florida, and it was lower. I think that's where I'm moving. Maybe. Okay, in Maine, the cost was higher by 23%. Wow. Ogden, overall, it was lower by a couple percent. Okay. 2% higher in Rochdale, New York. Yeah, some of New York, like upstate New York, that kind of thing, I heard is comparable to living here, like cost-wise. So that is an opportunity. But I think taxes are higher. That's one thing that's not good. Always something to think out. Okay, anybody else? All right. Guess we'll move on. Okay, so that is the end. Pretty short and sweet today, about a little less than 30 minutes. Okay, so what you need to do, I'm going to go back just to the course real quick. You have module 3 that you need to do. So we got 2 videos and 2 quizzes in that. And then module 4, which there's quite a bit in module 4. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. And that's identifying sources of income and specific employment skills. Okay. That's all I got. I'm going to stop the recording. Do you guys have any questions or concerns about anything? I'll stay after to